Hello YouTube and welcome to part 3 of my showcase of Lordcraft 3. We're here to talk about the mana system. Well, not the mana system, the spellcasting system, and how that all works. There's a few things that exist in this, and the first thing I'll talk about, because it's probably the least interesting, so we'll get that out of the way, is the robes. Now these basically make your spells cheaper, and there are different ones for each element, and what they basically do is that for each piece you're wearing, that any spells of that elemental type will cost 5% less per piece, and if you're wearing a full set of the same element, then every spell will go down by a further 10%. So you can use that to get a pretty big discount on your spell casting. So quite handy overall. And they also look quite nice. The texture has changed slightly since last time, so the shoulder pads are a bit longer compared to how they were. So, yeah, that's the robes. Fairly basic. They don't provide much armor, but they are unbreakable as well. They're not too expensive. So that's that. And each set has a slightly different trim color. So the Earth one, for example, has got the orange trim, as you can see from its icons, so, as opposed to the red trim of the fire ones there. So, yeah, that's those. Fairly uninteresting, but can be quite useful in the long run for saving you on crystals. So, the main feature of the spellcrafting system is the Spellcrafter, staves, and the Arcane Bow. So I'll grab all this other stuff. So, the main thing here is the Spellcrafter. So this thing allows you to craft spells, and it has this interface. So first thing you want to do is pop your spell focus into the slot. Spell focus is kind of cheap, it's just a fusion ritual. Again, probably prefer to do that in the Arcane Forge because, you know, you might be making a lot of these. What you can do is select first the focus, which is essentially the type of spell that it is. So, oh, interesting, that shouldn't be showing up in here. Curious. Okay, I need to fix that. Again, more things to fix in future versions, that's fine. But you can select the type of spell that shows up. So let's do projectile because that's pretty simple. Doing so shows up these options, which gives me a couple of things here. So I can change it to lob, which basically gives it gravity. Charging, which lets me essentially, when preparing the spell, you can hold down the right mouse button for a bit longer to increase the damage or effectiveness of the spell. And then there's a velocity slider here, which lets you make it go faster. You can right click to reset that to its default position of 1. I'll leave it on 1 for now, just so you can get an idea. I can then set the spell, of which there's a fair few options available. You unlock these through research. There's a fair here. So let's select, I don't know, dig, because that's kind of fun. There's a few upgrades here. There's frugal, which makes it cost less mana, so probably always worth putting in if you can. And then there's 3x3, which increases the radius of the dig spell. It's quite nice. And I'm going to call this dig. So I can then craft the spell. Like so. Otherwise make that spell there. And then I can pop it onto a staff. So let's buy our staff. Got this one here, which allows me, I can just right click with it and it equips the crystal from my inventory. And now when I click with the staff, it will fire the projectile, which, because it's earth, looks like a potato. It was a bit of a random choice. I'll probably be updating it in the next version, or next major update. I'll probably be adding custom projectile. But as you can see, it digs. And the items are dropped on my head. So I can use that to dig at a long range. And with that, if I want to take the crystal off, I can just shift scroll wheel and it will come off. I can then put it in here, load it up, and then upgrade this to the 3x3 version, which increases the mana cost. Because I'm in creator mode, it's free, but this allows me to, as you can see, dig a bit. Okay. I can also, let's put the velocity up, shall we, on the projectile up to 2. So it should travel faster. See, that's quite a bit faster. So yeah, quite a nice dig spell. Yeah, that's the dig spell there. Can play around with some other ones. What else have we got? We've got Blink. This is quite a nice one as well. This allows you to teleport to the location that the spell it's targeted at. In this case, over there. Because it's a projectile, it will obviously activate wherever that is. There, which is quite nice. So that's the staff. Actually, one other thing about the staff, I should probably mention, is that if you're holding something in your offhand, it won't work. It requires both hands to be free. This is a kind of a balancing mechanic. There is an alternative to the staff, which is the wand, which does not have this restriction. However, the effectiveness of damaging spells is reduced, but it does not have the restriction of being a two-handed weapon. The staves themselves are also quite potent weapons. You can see it has 7 attack damage, 1 attack speed, which makes it not awful for also just fighting enemies with, as opposed to the wand, which also does have an attack, but does much less damage with hits. There are upgrades to the staves. You can actually craft them using different staff caps, the iron ones, the gold ones, and the magmite ones. These increase the damage of the staff when you hit with them. The other upgrade is the Amplification Rod, which is the core for the staff, and that allows you to basically use more powerful spells. So there is a restriction that, well, if you're not in creative mode, then you'll see that they have a max mana cost, and that basically means if the spell costs above that much mana, it cannot be cast by that staff or wand, basically. That's a restriction there that exists. An alternative to staves is the Arcane Bow, which essentially acts like a regular bow, except that you can load it up with a spell crystal, such as this. It's still called Dig, but it's a blink spell. So that's basically using the arrow as the spellcasting focus, so that when I fire the arrow, I will teleport to the location that it hits, in this case, because it's using blink. If I load this up and put a different spell in here, such as Dig, for example, which is quite a nice one for this, you'll see that the arrow will hit, and it will dig whatever block it hits. Now this can be quite powerful. As you can see, it will keep digging. It will actually drain mana from me every single time that hits something in this situation, so it will stop in survival, but because I'm a creative, it will just keep going until it hits bedrock. Oh, I picked up some coal, so it's giving me the campfire recipes, which is nice. Oh, there we go, it must have stopped, because I've stopped picking up items. So, some cool things there. You can also, for example, put Ignite on it, and then we can shoot that pig that I've just seen running around and set him on fire. Oops. There we are. So, as you can see, it applied the spell effects after it did damage, which is quite nice. So yeah, quite useful on the whole. The final thing for spellcasting is with the Runestones. These are essentially an upgrade to your staves or wands that allow you to hold multiple spells at the same time. So the biggest issue you find with the staves is that they can hold only one crystal in them. Runestones are a bit less limited. The basic one has 3 slots, and the advanced one, the Nordic Runestone, has 6 slots. And you can scroll through them by shift scroll wheeling. I can equip the thing into the slot by just right-clicking while I'm hovering over one of these. And the casting is the same as normal, just right-click. And to take it out, you just hold shift, alternate effect, which is X, and then scroll wheel, and it'll pull it out. So that's that there. And it will even tell you which spell you got hovered over. It's still called Dig, because I haven't renamed it. But that's there. So I can load up a couple of other spells. Let's say, for example, Channeling, and I don't know. Let's go with Lift. This Lift. Let's load that one up into here. And you can see I have multiple spells lifted in, put into that. So let's go Lift. A lifting spell fires a laser beam because it's channeling. And this lets me lift targets that get hit by the beam into the air, which can be quite powerful. I will say that all of the combat effects do slightly less to players than they do to mobs, which makes them not as useful against players, but still can be pretty powerful on the whole. So, yeah. some cool spells available here. There's an upgrade as well to this. If I upgrade this focus of channeling to include chaining, it will also chain to nearby mobs. So if I fire it here, you'll see it actually lifts up additional mobs in the area, which is quite cool. So, yeah, and it actually has a little, it will show the laser beam linking between them as well, which is pretty nice. So yeah, that's that. Pretty cool there. Let's see. And of course I can put these into the Advanced Runestone, which just has the advantage of having extra slots available. A couple of extra ones we got. One of my favourite ones is Cascade. This goes quite funny in conjunction with, where is it? Gravity Well. So Gravity Well, by default, all it does is it's basically it fires a it places a projectile at a location, and it sucks targets towards it. But in conjunction with Cascade, which is essentially a projectile that shoots a laser at an entity within range, it can produce some rather unusual effects, like that. As you can see, it can basically stick onto targets like so, and create unusual situations. Let's make it nighttime. To get some mobs to start spawning in. So I can demonstrate this on a larger amount of targets. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, let's put that on hard. I don't think that actually increases mob spawns, but it might be more clear what's going on when there are more mobs hanging about. Still not dark enough to spawn mobs there. Come on, son, go down. Demonstrate this. Well, while that's setting, let's make another spell. Let's see, what else could we do? Let's do Scatter. Yeah, Scatter's pretty cool as well. So this fires multiple projectiles. I believe it does decrease the potency level of the spell cast, so it does slightly less damage, or is slightly less effective, but can be quite good in conjunction with some other things, such as Dig. Dig is quite a good one to use this with, as it fires like a big scattering here, which damage blocks pretty effectively. I might put lobbing on this because it produces a pretty cool effect. So lobbing has the advantage of also making the spell cheaper to cast slightly, but of course gives gravity to the spells. But I can fire this, and you'll see that the projectiles do drop. But yeah, good spell. Right, I forgot, but I've set this to, I forgot that I turned off the daylight cycle, that's why I wasn't setting. Yeah, very forgetful. Fantastic. Really only an Enderman spawn so far? That's disappointing. Oh, there we go, skeleton and zombie. They're close enough together? Probably. Yes, there we go. So, you can get some really unusual effects because the gravity well pulls things towards it, and that can sort of pull a large number of mobs together. It does hurt them slightly as well when they're within the gravity well's area, so this can allow you to get kills. Although it's not super effective as a combat thing, it's still pretty good. Oh, and if you hold shift, by the way, it does also pull you in. One of the things that you can do with Gravity Well, because of the way it works, it uses the spell projectile itself. That's the thing. If I swap it from Cascade to just projectile, and you can actually use it to hold shift. I can actually use it to ride the projectile. It's going a bit fast there. Let's slow it down a bit. Just slow that down. You can use it to ride the projectile, which can allow you to get not exactly a good form of flight, but, you know, it's something. It does kind of get stuck on the player a bit, but yeah. You can use it to kind of travel a little bit, but not ideal, certainly. So yeah, not great, but it's a thing. It exists, and it's kind of handy. The projectile version basically works that if it hits something, it stops where it hits, which allows it to basically work kind of like how you want it to. So yeah, that's that. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it I can talk about spellcasting. Most of it is just stuff that you can play around with. There's a fair amount of options available, number of focuses, number of spells that you can combine however you want to basically produce all sorts of crazy things, pretty much. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this showcase. And yeah, going forward, well, I mean, the next version going forward, I'm just going to introduce probably the Lord Realms. So that's a returning feature from Warcraft 2. You'll see the returns of the Overlords, the Nexus, and some questing. I'm planning on having the questing be more like Ignis's questing. So of all of the Lords, Ignis is the only one that had actually properly written quests. The others were all just like, kill this number of mobs, go fetch me these items. Whereas Ignis actually had a kind of storyline to his quests. And I want to basically have there be a storyline with the Overlords going forward, because I want it to be more interesting than it was in Warcraft 2. Overall, I want this version of Warcraft to be the best version of Warcraft there is. And that, I feel, is quite an important feature going forward. So I want the rewards to feel good for what you have to do, and just have the entire thing not just be a real pain, because it is a bit of a pain in Warcraft 2. So that's something I want to avoid here. I want it to just be fun and give you some good stuff. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you for the next time. Goodbye.